This is the 2024 Subaru Ascent Onyx Edition. Can Subaru's three-row SUV compete against the Honda Pilot and Hyundai Palisade? We have a full review and off-road test right now on Driving Sports TV. Subaru first premiered the Onyx Edition with the Outback XT back in 2020. At that point, it was a small step towards the upcoming off-road ready wilderness trim. The story goes like this. Subaru had a wilderness model in development, and they wanted to do a mid-cycle refresh on the Outback to get a more off-roady product to market sooner rather than later. But they knew if they came up short with wilderness on the first attempt, it would hurt the potential of future products. And that is how the Onyx Edition was born. That first Outback Onyx Edition came with a full-size spare, optional underbody skid plates, and it also introduced the dual-mode X-Mode off-road traction system. It was a small step towards wilderness, but with blacked-out badging, it also made a solid style statement. So here we are in 2024, and Subaru has finally given the Ascent the Onyx Edition treatment. Actually, technically they gave it last year, but this is my first time reviewing it. Exclusive to this trim, the Ascent gets StarTech synthetic leather, blacked out trim and badging, as well as 20-inch blacked out wheels. The tires here are Falken Zykes. These are all-season radial and they are big. We're looking at a 245 50 R20 because yes, these are 20-inch lacquered black wheels. In other words, they probably scratch pretty easy, and we don't have a ton of sidewall here, so no rock crawling today. Although we'll probably crawl over some logs a little bit later. It also gets a surround view monitor system, which is a pretty new setup for Subaru. This gives various angles to help with parking, and it also functions as a trail camera. Since this is the Onyx Limited, it also gets upgraded sound and a nice panorama sunroof. Prices you see it here with optional mud mats, $48,031 US including destination, which is a pretty good value considering all you get here. Like all Ascent trims, under the hood you'll find a turbocharged 2.4-liter 4-cylinder boxer motor. This produces a peak 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. It's attached to a high-torque CVT, and it powers all four wheels through Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive. This uses Subaru's active system with a mid-mounted transfer clutch to send power front to back. This is a full-time setup that can send up to 50% of available torque to the rear wheels, but it's usually sending a minimum of 20%. Brake vectoring sends power side to side. EPA rates economy at 19 mpgs in the city and 25 on the highway. When equipped with a hitch, the Subaru Ascent here can tow up to 5,000 pounds. However, our test vehicle did not come with one. It does, however, have a spare tire under there. Though the original Outback Onyx XT did come with a matching spare tire, this one only has a temporary. Inside, you'll find extra storage under the floor. Fold the third row down for up to 42.1 cubic feet of cargo capacity. Fold all rows flat for a maximum of 72.8 cubic feet. Can you sleep in it? I'm 6'1" and I fit, but the captain's chairs create a massive gap that makes it really challenging to get comfortable. With the seats up, the third row is best for short adults or kids. I don't fit at all. The second row is much better. I also get full climate controls in addition to 2 stages of heat, extra cup holders, and a window blind. Now let's check out what's up front. Powered up. Easy push button start. Gauges come alive. We're looking at the standard Subaru setup with a tack on the left, speedo on the right, multifunction color display in the middle. Now the steering wheel is wrapped in leather. I really like it. We get this nice contrast stitching that you also see throughout the vehicle. Really creates a nice signature look for the Onyx on the interior. Now this steering wheel gets an extra bonus. Yeah, we actually have a heater here. That's nice. Subaru, why don't you put steering wheel heaters on more vehicles? Here in the United States, we just don't get them. Yet for some reason, you put them in the Canadian cars. You know, not all of the United States is the South. We have a lot of cold states and we would like steering wheel warmers, please. Okay, On the right here, we do get controls for the adaptive cruise control with lane centering. That is all thanks to the eyesight safety system, which is a camera-based system up here. We also get blind spot warning on the mirrors, and then going to reverse, we get a nice surround view camera system with tracking and rear cross traffic alerts. So we got lots of safety stuff going on here. Now, to dig down a little bit more into it, this camera system, when I'm in reverse, it has all the elements you want, but the camera quality is pretty low. Looking at the details, it's just not a very good camera system, but I am glad to see Subaru adding things like surround view here. In park, we actually get other surround view settings. We get this kind of cool 3D surround view, just so you can check all the perimeter of the vehicle and make sure that there's no children, that you're about to run over, so that's good. And that does bring us to this center screen. This is Subaru's larger system that they've started to put onto pretty much everything. I mean, even the new Crosstrek Wilderness has this screen. The new Forester is getting it. And I think by now, pretty much everything except the BRZ is going to have this as an option, at least on upper trims. And it's a good setup, and this is the latest software version. So we actually have the modified Aircon at the bottom. If you have an older Subaru with the same display, you can get a downloadable update that will give you this updated cluster down here. And this, my favorite thing, is allows me to turn on my seat warmers with just a click. I don't have to go into a sub-menu. That was a big complaint I had in the old system, and thankfully they fixed that here. You have easy access to things like turning on and off the rear aircon, turning on your front aircon, seat warmers, and then you do have 2 clicks if you want to set a specific temperature, but I think most people are just going to do up down, which you actually have physical buttons right here for. Plus we have front defrost and rear defrost, as well as tune and volume right here, right on the front with big knobs. So that's kind of nice. The Ascent also has another cool function that's integrated in this tablet system, and that is Cabin Connect. I hit that button and now my voice is being thrown to the 3rd row. I've seen this in other van vehicles, but I'm kind of surprised to see it in a Subaru. That's kind of fancy. It also makes my voice sound really weird up here as I'm listening to myself. Further with this system, you can customize the display. If there's a bunch of stuff that's buried in the menus that you want to create a button for, it's super easy. You basically just add shortcut, pick your shortcut, and boom, there it is. Now, the rest of the system here does have, it has some pluses. You have your XM satellite radio, you get maps. The maps are TomTom powered. It tells you that all over the place, but they're not real advanced. Where systems like what you see in the latest Toyota let you do freestyle text where you just ask it what you want and it figures it out, this one, not so good. So for example,
please say a command.
Find the nearest Starbucks.
Please choose a line
number. It has absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. It needs you to follow a very strict voice pattern to be able to query. And granted, yes, you can learn that, but I'm in so many vehicles, I don't want to bother learning everybody's system, and we are moving to systems which are freestyle text. So this is kind of a dated system in that regard. Frankly, I will be using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I will not ever be using the built-in maps. So, talking about that, Apple CarPlay. It is wireless. I've already set it up here. All you have to do is plug in your phone and you're good to go. It basically asks you a couple questions and boom, you get wireless. I have found it to be very reliable on these new systems. So yeah, yay for wireless CarPlay. Now, oddly enough, there is no charging pad here. You can only charge by plugging into USB, and they do provide you USB-A as well as USB-C. But one thing I like here is that there's very little piano black on any of the touch points. I mean, yeah, we have some surrounding this, but you don't really touch the sides there, not with keys and stuff. Down here, though, in the little cup holders, no piano black. Actually, no piano black on the doors either. This is really good. They're listening. Now, we do have some faux silver pieces that, I don't think look the best. Also, we have the old school transmission selector lever, which I kind of like. And we can slot it over for manual and then use the paddles to emulate a step gear set. Right, what else do we have? Oh, because this is a limited, it will scan my face to make sure that I'm paying attention. I actually don't love that, but it is a feature here, and you can set up user profiles so that when whoever has a face that's already scanned, you can sit in this seat and then it'll set all the parameters to your liking. But if your household has multiple drivers with one car, then that could actually be a helpful thing to have. In the past, up here where the eye sensor is, Subaru used to have a secondary display. That is actually now integrated into the large tablet. And so any of the vehicles that have the large tablet will have this secondary display integrated right here. And this allows us to see everything from vehicle data to weather, and this is also where you can pick your X mode settings, snow, dirt, or deep snow, mud. Onyx editions have the dual mode X mode, mainly because they were the first stopgap product before wilderness. And so this brought us to the wilderness products. Because this is also a limited, it does have the fancy Harman Kardon audio system, and we get this really nice panorama sunroof, which, I kind of like it, especially on gray days like today. And if I didn't mention it, this vehicle has 19 cup holders. I just got to say that because they definitely thought about the way people use vehicles, and three-row SUVs, they're meant for hauling families. And when you have a family, you got lots of stuff. So we have cup holder, bin, cup. Basically, this thing is set up to be lived in. And I think that's a very good thing and quite appropriate for the category. Now, where this vehicle doesn't shine is the fact that it's actually smaller compared to other vehicles in this class. The third row, kind of useless for an adult, whereas I kind of fit inside a Palisade and inside the Honda Pilot. This vehicle, there's no way I'm going to go into the third row. And if you compare this versus like Toyota's Grand Highlander, yeah, not even close. Grand Highlander has more power, more space. It's also significantly more expensive. I'm just saying that if you're looking for something in this space, you have a lot of options, and many of them are really good. So, would you pick this one? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. So, today we are going to go take this for a drive, and then we're going to bring it back here to our Peninsula Proving Grounds and throw it through a course and see how good the all-wheel drive system functions. Is this Ascent Onyx Edition a great all-arounder, or is it really more for the street? I mean, it does have 20-inch wheels, which doesn't say off-roader, but we'll give it a shot and we'll see how it does. And with that, we're going to belt up and go for a drive. Okay, here we go. Driving the new Ascent Onyx Edition Limited. It's been a while since I've been inside an Ascent. In fact, I don't think I've driven one since the press launch several years ago. But it's still a very comfortable place to be, and that's because it's very much like all other Subarus. And I have, of course, driven a lot of Subarus in the last few years. In fact, Subaru's given us a couple long-termers, so, I've driven them maybe more than some other vehicles. And I really like Subarus in general. And that is, of course, a personal preference. I just happen to like the way that the Subaru all-wheel drive system is a full-time all-wheel drive, unlike a lot of vehicles these days. And even though it is a clutch-based system with brake vectoring side to side, and they don't use the limited slips in the back or anything like that really much anymore, I just think that for a modern vehicle, it provides a almost perfect balance between capability and streetability. So I love the 4Runner. Those who've watched the channel for a long time know I personally owned a 2021. I drove it a ton, loved that vehicle. I sold it because I was expecting a new 4Runner to get announced fairly soon, and I wanted to try another vehicle in the meantime. However, it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. Delayed so much that eventually I've now placed an order on a new Land Cruiser. Yeah, I ordered a Land Cruiser. So we'll see if that ever gets here. Point being is that the 4Runner is a great off-roader that's kind of okay on the street. I think it's actually fine for daily driving, but somebody who wants to feel like a more car-like experience is going to find the 4Runner a little too truck-like, perhaps. I mean, it dips and it bobs, and it's a ladder-on-frame construction, so it's just not going to feel like a car. And more specifically, it's not going to feel like a Subaru. A Subaru is great because on the road, it drives like a really good car. You have balance, you have usually enough power, unless you buy one of the really low spec items. And that is why vehicles like this, like the Honda Pilot, like the Hyundai Palisade, are so popular. They provide that 3-row, go anywhere kind of feeling, but with the driving characteristics of a car. They're easy to drive. You feel like you have complete control. They feel lower to the ground than a 4Runner. They also, they have that all-wheel drive, so you don't have to worry about, am I in low? Am I in high? Do I need to lock a rear diff? Don't have to worry about any of that. You just put the throttle down and you get through whatever you need to get through. Now, some of them do it better than others. The new Honda Pilot Trail Sport is excellent. The Hyundai Palisade is but now we're in the Ascent, and the Ascent, of course, is based on Subaru's active all-wheel drive system. The active all-wheel drive basically is a 80% of torque to the front while you're cruising, 20% to the rear, and if it feels like it needs more power, it'll send up to 50% of available torque to the rear wheels. It then uses wheel braking to shift power side to side. Now, the advantage of a brake vectoring system like Subaru now uses versus limited slip differentials in the back, which they used to use, is that this works on both the front and the back, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to implement. Whereas the old system was more mechanically complicated, it made more noise, and it wasn't as configurable. It affected all driving, which you don't always want it to affect driving. Whereas the software system, you can dial in more or less or none at all, depending on the driving conditions. That is why we have standard symmetrical all-wheel drive plus 2 X mode settings, as those X mode settings vary the amount of torque that you're sending left to right. And it makes a vehicle like this not just easy to drive, but also very capable. So here we are in the Ascent, and it's very much like other Subarus. You have that fairly upright seating position, although this one is a little bit more upright than you would normally see in a Subaru. You have the nicely configured steering wheel, large display over here, very easy to read, very traditional gauge cluster in the middle. Subaru is very well known for their eyesight safety system, and this one, of course, has it like all the other vehicles. But even further, this has sensors on the side for blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alerts. And this also has adaptive cruise control, which we'll get to later. But what I'm trying to get to here is the fact that this also has a face scanner. And the face scanner actually provides a number of functions. First off, you can set up individual profiles for multiple drivers. So each driver has different configurations within the vehicle. So if like driver A sits in it, it can have different radio presets than driver B, different seating positions, different mirror positions, stuff like that. But it also will detect the health of the driver. If, for example, I were to pass out or become incapacitated, the Subaru here, in certain conditions, will safely try to pull the vehicle over to the side of the road. That's pretty cool. And so that is why you have the face scanner. It's not just to send Big Brother your current whereabouts. In fact, the data is stored locally on the vehicle, and it is only held momentarily to process the data. It is not saved. Now let's talk about drivability, crossing this bridge right here. The nice thing about this vehicle is it doesn't feel huge. The Honda Passport, the Honda Pilot, they feel really big on the inside. This one has room in the back, but it doesn't feel massive. And that, I think, makes it a little bit easier to drive than some of the other options. Now, granted, at the end of the day, it's not as big as some of the other options, but how big do you really need a vehicle to be? If you need that little bit of extra storage in the back, then obviously you need to move up to something bigger like the Hyundai Palisade or even the new Toyota Grand Highlander, or heck, just get a van. So we've covered a lot of the details of this car, but how does it drive? That's probably the real question at the end of the day. So I want to stop here. I'm just going to do a full throttle start, and we're going to feel how this CVT works with this Turbo 4 and slam it. And then, whoa, we kind of get that later punch from the engine. And now it's like fake shifting because it knows I'm doing wide open throttle. So it's a little rubber bandy, but it's not nearly as bad as some other CVTs. And when I say CVT, for those who don't know, that's continuously variable transmission. It uses a set of cogs and a chain to be able to basically keep the engine in the optimal RPM range as you need it. Now, because Subaru knows people like a performance feel of a stepped transmission. If you go wide open throttle, it kind of fakes gears, which is kind of nice. But if you're actually just keeping a steady throttle, it'll just accelerate and keep the engine right in its optimal range. Now, it does that, of course, for economy. And the economy is pretty good on this vehicle, but it's a bigger vehicle, so you're going to get a hit. Even though this engine is the same engine that's in the Outback, here you get less MPGs of only a combined of 21. And that is just not that great. But it's good in the realm of three-row crossovers, because these are big, heavy vehicles, and you're asking a lot of that little engine. But I feel like you have enough punch in this vehicle. I'm not missing a V6 at all. And the fact is V6s don't get any better MPGs than this does. In fact, I just had the Honda Passport, which granted is a two-row version, slightly smaller than the Pilot, and it didn't do any better than this. In fact, it had worse MPGs than the Ascent did, which is kind of weird. I kind of like the way this vehicle drives. I think that the steering feel is pretty good on center, and it's a little bit on the light side, but it is easy to drive. And I don't feel like there's any uncontrolled roll through the corners. It actually handles corners pretty well. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the boxer motor can put the center of gravity so incredibly low in this vehicle. It's something you just can't do with a standard transverse engine setup. And I think that is the huge advantage of all Subarus, and it's one reason why I like Subarus. It's also a reason why people like Porsches, because a lot of Porsches, at least their sports cars, have boxer motors, which again gets your center of gravity as low as possible, and that improves handling. So with Subaru, you can have vehicles that have 8.7 inches of ground clearance, but still have incredibly good handling. So we got another Subaru in front of us, actually. It's an older Outback. Let's try out this adaptive cruise control with lane centering. I'm going to go ahead and set a speed. I'm right behind him, and I've turned on lane centering. I see a little active green marker there, and now it's tracing in the lanes. And one thing I do like about this system, and it's not a hands-free system, I'm just doing this to demonstrate for you. I am being very hyper aware of what the vehicle's doing. It will eventually tell me to put my hands back on the wheel. It's doing that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and twitch it a little, and we're going to let it drive still. So Subaru's getting there with their system. I mean, this is a very capable, nice on-center vehicle. And I just had the Honda Passport, and that vehicle felt very surgy. It put the brakes on very quickly when the person in front of you did any change. It was very slow to get back up to speed. And then in terms of lane centering, it just didn't feel very certain. Basically, if I was sitting in the passenger seat and the driver was driving like the Honda system was driving, I would be very concerned. This system, it drives nice. It drives natural. It feels like a competent driver. And if you're having a system assist you, you want it to be competent. And this system is. In fact, I've driven across the US multiple times with different versions of EyeSight. I found them all to be excellent systems considering the current state of the art. Subaru, in fact, will probably be one of the last to do like a proper autopilot system just because they're such a conservative company. But it's not like they're not making headway. They have a LiDAR-based system that they're testing in Japan that really is showing like the future of where EyeSight is going. And it's a combination camera and LiDAR system. The little chime you heard was a lane detect, which is fine. Now that we've tested on the street and it's very nice to drive, I think it's time that we check out the off-road capability of this trim. Now, this trim, of course, is running 20-inch wheels, so we have to be careful not to scratch them. Doesn't matter how much Subaru likes me. They don't like it when I scratch things, so I got to be really careful. We're going to take this to our Peninsula Proving Grounds where we'll test out the all-wheel drive system and see just how capable it is. Is this Ascent as good as other Subarus? Here we are at our Peninsula Proving Grounds, and the first test we're going to do is the slip test. This should help you visualize how power is shifted front to back. Now, different vehicles have different ways of managing their dynamics control systems. Sometimes they just don't let you do anything from a start because most people do not want spinning wheels in their little family SUV. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn off VDC. There we go, it is off. And I'm gonna preload the turbo, and I'm just gonna punch it, and, oh, by the way, I'm preloading the turbo because you have optimal torque at higher range. So I'm gonna put the brake down, add a little gas, release the brake, punch the gas. That way we can get the most power down. 3, 2, 1, and go. Oh, no wheel spin. Okay, let's try that again with, let's go ahead and try with X Mode Deep Snow Mud, because that should reduce traction control, but it's not really designed for a full throttle situation, so I don't think it's gonna have any effect, but let's just see. 3, 2, 1, go! Yeah, very little wheel spin. But that's okay. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Now we can test down this little rally stage we have down the middle of the course. I'm gonna do a turnaround here. See if we can get a little rotation from throttle. Oh, nope, 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 nope. Got more push than anything there. Now, you usually get rotation from a system that is designed to push more power to the back. This system only does up to 50%, so yeah, power rotation, it would have to significantly break the front wheels to do that. And again, that's just kind of outside the audience of an Ascent, right? Okay, so what did we experience there? Well, handling, because of that low motor, is excellent, even in slippery surfaces. I feel very confident just going down this main line, turning, hitting some bumps, swinging it around. It does great. Obviously, this isn't a rally car. And they've set up the tuning of the vehicle to be appropriate for who's going to buy it. It's going to be people who want to feel safe. Well, now let's see if it's going to safely get us through the easy course, which we call Fun Forest. This is a fairly easy course, but it gives us an opportunity to see how power is shifted left to right in family-style crossovers. We start with a climb, and then it's going to go left and right, removing traction from each wheel. We're going to look for wheel braking, kicking in to shift that power left to right. Now I'm going to start in X Mode Normal. In other words, just regular symmetrical all-wheel drive, and we'll put on X Mode modes as we need them. Okay, now the approach here, let's listen for grinding. Subarus are known, even though they have really good handling on gravel and road because of that boxer motor, it also makes approach angles a little difficult because they sit so low and far out in front of the wheels. So here we're spinning wheels, which is fine. What I'm going to do here is go ahead and put on Snow Dirt mode, which is X Mode Type 1. That's the type of X Mode that all Subaru vehicles that have X Mode have the Snow Dirt mode. Now at this point, when I add throttle, you'll see wheel braking, shift that power side to side, both on the front and the rear wheels. And that kind of gives us a traction system similar to having a locker, but it does require a lot of wheel spin before those systems start kicking in. And that's the biggest difference, is that with a locker, you immediately have that kicking in, rotating both wheels at the same time. This one, it starts to spin, locks it, and then sends power to the other one. So you do end up churning up your trails a lot more with a traction-based system like this one. So this first dip next to the deadwood tree, it's going to really lift up that back rear wheel, passenger side. But we still have a little gravity assist here, so we just roll out of it. And this is a little snug for vehicles of this size. Hear that X Mode kicking in. Now the next version of X Mode, Deep Snow Mud, don't really need to use. That allows for additional wheel spin to help clear lugs out of the tire, like if they kick up with mud and stuff. But we just don't need that with this because we're not dealing with mud, snow, stuff like that. Okay, next tilt. Pull up that driver's side tire in the rear, and then we cut around here, dip in. Now this is where the passport got all messed up, but I actually did end up removing a bunch of dirt in the front because the whole idea is not to absolutely strand the vehicles, though the passport got stranded. But the problem with the passport wasn't that it got stranded, but it was that in trying to get it out, its all-wheel drive system failed. Not cool. A lot of people in the comments here say Subaru systems fail all the time. Haven't seen it. I've driven these things everywhere. You've seen videos of it. I've never had an overheat in a modern Subaru. So does that mean we never will? Well, I don't know. We'll keep having fun with them and pushing them to the limit. But until I actually get fails, I cannot report on a fail. So let's wait and see if they fail. But I'm not going to I'm not going to put them up a 45-degree angle and just do full throttle for 40 minutes because nothing's going to survive that. But I think we will continue to do practical testing and see what they're capable of, Now at this point, we have the passenger rear wheel kind of a little bit in the air, and we have to climb out, so this should be the most difficult spot. See, we're kind of teeter-tottering. System gets out no problem. See, that's what Passport should have done. Yeah, once we get over this little climb here, we're going to head over to the log crossing and see if this can deal with that. Any rubbing? Ooh, no. Thank you. 8.7 inches of ground clearance. Oop, a little struggle on the way out, though. It's okay. X mode kicking in. Right. So we'll take a quick look at what we have here. Obviously, we've planted logs into sand, and there's also a few boulders around here. Basically, this is a traction and clearance test. Very real world, because if you're driving along the beach and you run across a few logs that are buried in the sand, you need to know if you can get over them, right? Anyway, that's what we're going to test next. Oh, this is also a good opportunity to use the camera systems to help align along the rocks. Okay, this should be pretty easy for this vehicle. It's mostly a test of clearances, but we can also use it to test the camera system because, of course, this does have the multi-view where we can either look at individual wheels or do a front approach with tracking lines, which is nice. Let's go ahead and do individual wheels. So with this, we're going to try to clear the shrub over there. And I want to put my wheels right on those rocks. Let's see how close we can come to there. Climb over. Oh yeah. Looks like it's doing a pretty good job. And then I can see which log I have coming up. About to hit that one. Up and over. Just try to keep it smooth and steady. I don't want to hit the logs too hard because then you start to roll the logs. So this is really about just easing over. And I would like a little bit better crawl ratio here, but it's not too bad really for what this is. So I wonder, as we're going to go around this tree, can I get a surround view that'll help? Oh yeah. Again, the cameras are not great, but they are good enough to be helpful. And I am glad that they finally have multiple views, because for years Subaru only put on a rear camera, and then seemingly begrudgingly they only put on a front camera when they had an off-road version. And now finally they have full surround view, which is nice. Whew, that's sun. Okay. And then we climb out of the sand here. Right. So, the 2024 Subaru Ascent Onyx XT. If anything, this just makes me really want a wilderness version of this vehicle. Give me skid plates, give me a little more ground clearance, give me all-terrain tires. Now granted, I can do that to this vehicle, but I'd rather have it from the factory. And then give me something else a little special, like give me crawl control. Subaru, I know you can do it. Engineer crawl control into these things. I think that would be a really nice addition. But other than that, this is comfortable. If you want something more capable now, take a look at the Honda Pilot Trail Sport. I think that is one of the most capable in this segment without going up to a, like a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And then if you need more space on the inside, consider the Toyota Grand Highlander for more money, or you can even look at the Hyundai Palisade. That's a pretty good package as well. But one thing I like about this vehicle is just how well it does everything. It's not the biggest, it's not the fastest, it's not the most capable, but really it's very, very good in all the ways in which you actually live with a crossover. For Driving Sports TV, I'm Ryan Douthit. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, post a comment below. Would you buy this? Would you buy something else? If so, why? We'll see you again right here real soon.